Yes. It came. Awesome. You feel it in there, little passport book. All right, let's go check it out. Good morning, guys. I'm Captain Brian, and this is Big Lake Little Boat. I got it. I finally got it. So today's video is going to be about the time frame for when I started working on my captain's license, the time where I actually physically got it in the mail, and I'm also going to talk about the checklist. So there's a big checklist you have to go through in order to send your entire packet in to the Maritime Center for them to review it and to finally issue your captain's license. Okay, so I started this journey. I purchased the Mariner's Learning System October the 12th, and that evening I started working on it. So I originally purchased the OUPV and assistance towing together as a package. And I managed to get through that basically in a month, okay? And got it done, got the OUPV done. And if you guys want to check out the video I did on that, it's in my playlist. So feel free to check that video out. Then I decided, you know what? I've checked out the requirements for the master's license. So what the master's license does is it allows you to take more than 6 paying customers, and then it limits you on how many ton of boat you could use. So I had enough sea time. I've owned this boat for over 20 years. I've owned this boat since 2001. So as of this date, it's March 23rd, 2024. So what I'm going to go over in this video may or may not pertain to future dates. Okay, so this is just what happened in 2024, March of 2024. So keep that in mind. So yes, I had enough sea time to qualify for masters. As soon as I got done with my OUPV, I did the assistance towing. That only took me basically a Friday night and Saturday morning to finish up. So then I checked, and obviously I did have enough sea time to do masters, so I went ahead and purchased the masters. And by the way, I called them and they gave me a discount on it since I was already a student with them. So be sure to do that if you upgrade. I started on the masters, I believe, over Thanksgiving break. Okay, so I think I started working on it the Wednesday night, worked on it some on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I believe I took the exam on Sunday or Sunday night. So it took me 4 days to get through the masters. It's 70 questions. Additional over the OUPV, and a lot of the questions on there were almost verbatim on some of the OUPV tests that I took. So I got that done, and I had not started working on any other paperwork, which you guys can do. If you guys want to speed this whole process up, you could by starting to work on your paperwork earlier, okay? But I didn't. I wanted just to stay focused, work on this, get it done, and then do one thing at a time. So got that done, and then I started working on the checklist. Okay, so I actually received this March 9th of 2024. So I went a little slower. I did everything myself. You can also hire a third-party company to do this checklist and mail all your stuff to them, and they'll tell you what you forgot, and they will help you. But I felt it would be a little bit more rewarding. Plus, it's a little cheaper if you do it all yourself. And I had a few hiccups, and that's what I really wanted to go over in this video on the process and the checklist. So let's get started on the checklist, guys. So guys, with Mariner's Learning System, they have a lot of good information on their website. They help you. They have an 800 number that you can call. I called there several times with questions, and the gentleman there helped me out every single time. So there's a lot. And then if you're looking for how much sea time you need or what vessel qualifications you may have, check on the website. Everything's on there. So they also have this checklist. Okay, this checklist that they have, I printed it off, and then I went through one by one and worked through this checklist to getting all my information ready to be sent to the Coast Guard. So the first thing on the checklist is an application form, okay? And I'll show you guys what the application form is. So on the Mariners Learning System website, and I believe this even might, the Coast Guard also has a website too. The National Maritime Center Coast Guard website has all this information on it as well. So this is the actual application. You read through, you go through, you fill it out. Make sure you understand what you're filling out, because any hiccups on here will cause a delay. So, and if you have questions on how to fill it out, you can call Mariners or you can call the Maritime Center and they will help you answer some questions, which I did to get this through. One thing I wanted to point out is there's a certain part of this that has an oath, okay? Basically, you're signing this thing saying that everything's accurate, you're going to follow the laws. Well, to do this oath, all you have, you sign it and you have to have someone notarize it. So I went to the bank with this form, okay, and found one of the bankers in there, and he looked at it and says, "Where do I notarize?" And I said, "Right in this area here." So this is page 4 of 5, and right here, certification, my signature below attests that all information on this application is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, blah, 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 blah. So I brought that into the banker and he says, "There's no spot for me to notarize." I go, "Well, I sign it. Can't you put your little stamp in there?" He says, "No, there's no spot." Oh boy. So that was a hiccup at the bank. So I called the Maritime Center. They said, "Hey, there's another oath sheet that you can actually bring in, a separate piece of paper." So I went back to work because I went over lunchtime and proceeded to get that piece of paper. Okay, so this is the piece of paper that the Coast Guard said that I should take back to the bank. It says Merchant Mariner Oath, and guess what? It has sample across here. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to take this back to the bank, and then the banker's going to say, "I'm not going to do this because it doesn't look official." So I asked the Coast Guard over the phone, I'm like, "It has sample on it." She says, "It's going to work, trust me." So this is the piece of paper that I took, okay? And I took it right in. The gentleman at the bank said, "Yeah, I can do that. Right here's my little seal." He put his seal, signed it, and so then I attached that to my application, okay? So that's one hiccup. Have this piece of paper with you to when you get the application form notarized. So you don't have to spend another hour or two digging this out, calling the Maritime Center, and wondering what to do. So the next thing on the checklist is the Small Vessel Sea Service Form, okay? And this is how you document all of your sea time, okay? Whether it be inland, whether it be on the Great Lakes, or whether it be near coastal. And by the way, if you have enough time on the Great Lakes, you can actually qualify for a near coastal with your master's captain's license. So they treat the Great Lakes like the ocean, and so when I filled out my sea service forms, I put that I wanted a master's 25 ton because I haven't really driven a large boat. This is the only thing I've really ridden out there, piloted on the Great Lakes, is my own boat. But I did have enough sea time to qualify for a master's, but I couldn't increase my tonnage because I was capped at 25 because this thing's not even a ton, okay? But like I said, Great Lakes qualifies for near coastal, and near coastal trumps everything. So if you're going out on the Great Lakes, guys, Lake Superior, Lake Huron, Michigan, Ontario, or Erie, please, if you have enough sea time, go ahead and ask for a near coastal so that, in a case where you would retire, or if you would move to Florida or the East Coast, West Coast, and you want to operate out in the ocean, that near coastal will give you that jurisdiction up to 100 miles offshore in the Gulf, in the Atlantic, in the Pacific, or what have you. So I can retire right now, go to Florida, run a charter business, and go out in the Gulf of Mexico right now. just by having enough sea time on the Great Lakes. And then you have to ask for what you want. If I was to fill out my sea service form and leave it blank, they may have just given me an inland endorsement rather than near coastal. Okay guys, this is what the sea service form looks like. Okay, and this is on the Mariners Learning System website, and this is also on the Coast Guard Maritime Center's website as well. So it's fairly easy to understand, but you need to use one of these on every boat that you are documenting. Okay, I only use one boat. I've been out on buddies' boats, but I kept it simple, and I just documented my own boat, because 90% of the time that I go out on Lake Michigan, it's in my boat as well. Probably more like 95, 98%. So you have to fill out what years and how many days that you were on each body of water. Okay, so if I was on Lake Michigan, if I went on Wolf Lake and Hammond or something, you would put the bodies of water in here. I kept it simple. I just put Lake Michigan. And when I moved to Northwest Indiana in 2003, I actually did not start fishing on Lake Michigan until 2005. But I was taking it on smaller lakes. So when I bought this in 01, I was fishing north central Indiana, and I put those bodies of water in. But as soon as I knew I was fishing on Lake Michigan in 2005, then I started a new form with 2005, and then the years and the days I actually spent out on Lake Michigan. So when you're working a master's, they will tell you what you qualify for. There's all kinds of information on the websites to just read. Like, it takes this many days with this size of boat to qualify for near coastal. It takes this many days, this size of boat to qualify for you on tonnage. It's all self-explanatory, guys. It's all on the website. But I did want to show you what the sea service form looks like. So I put bodies of water, Lake Michigan, starting in 2005, how many days of each month, and number of days on Great Lakes. And this is important. So obviously it was on Lake Michigan, so I added up all these days on this form and put it in there. And that counts towards, that near coastal endorsement there. So, these are basically for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So every 5 years you have to have a new sea form, okay? And I think you have to at least have 4 hours on the Great Lakes if you're to qualify as a day. And like I said, there are little videos, and there's videos on YouTube as well that talk about a lot of filling these out specifically, okay? But I really didn't have any issues with this, filling it out. It was fairly self-explanatory for me. So, moving on. Okay, the third thing on the checklist is a drug test. This was interesting because, I've been to LabCorp several times. I've had blood drawn at LabCorp or any of these places, Quest. I'm sure there's doctor's offices that draw drug testing, or they'll do drug testing for different companies and things. So, I'm pretty independent, and I'm doing this all myself. So I get on Mariners or whatever it was, or the Maritime Center website, and I print off this drug testing form. So this is what that looks like. This is a GC-719P, okay? So I print this off, and it clearly says what they're going to be testing for. Marijuana, cocaine, amphetamines, opiates, phencyclidine, PCP. So I head to LabCorp. I head over to LabCorp with this form, walk up, and I say, I need to take a drug test. And the lady says, well, who ordered it? I go, myself. I'm doing this for the Coast Guard. She goes, no, you can't do that. You got to create an account. You got to do this. You got to do that. And then actually ask for someone to order it for you. And before we can actually administer it for you. I'm like, oh, geez. So here I am, bad signal in the office at LabCorp up here in Northwest Indiana. So I started working on it, and good thing that the two ladies in there heard, because they heard me say something about the Coast Guard. So they knew, so she says, you know what, stop making your username or password. Hang on a second, hang on. So she comes out, she goes, did you say this is for the Coast Guard? I said, I'm not working for the Coast Guard, but the Coast Guard is administering this drug test for this captain's license I'm going for. She says, well, you have to go through a different company. And I go, well, how do I do that? She goes, we got this 800 number, you have to call for this vault, V-A-U-L-T. I go, okay, what do I do? She goes, well, here it is. So then I go over to the window, because it's a big brick building and the cell signal's terrible. And called the gentleman, and the gentleman's like, yeah, we can get this done. I need you to fill out, sign the paper. There's a couple things he had me fill out on the thing, and then thank goodness that I have a scanning app on my phone. So I took it, scanned it, and by the way, it's Turbo Scan. I have an iPhone, it's Turbo Scan. Took a picture, and it converts it to the PDF, and I literally emailed it while I was in LabCorp to the guy. And I'm on the phone with him, and like a minute, he checks, yep, I just got it. He goes, yeah, it looks all good. Here's the number to administer it. Tell the lady. So then I gave the lady this, and she goes, okay, we can do this now. She had to enter on the computer whatever she had to enter. We went back. I did the sample. They sent it off. And this process actually took a while, guys. So I didn't get this back for like 2 weeks, okay? So this was kind of some of the longer things that it took to get this done. And like I said, I went through one thing at a time before I did the next step. So one thing I wanted to point out as well, make sure when you start all these processes, like you purchase the Mariner's Learning System, you're working with the Coast Guard, that you use a nice, clean email, okay? So I have a Big Lake Little Boat email that people can reach out to me on YouTube, and that's the only thing that I have that I have for that email. So that is imperative, because the Coast Guard will send you updates all the time, okay? And when you're doing all these processes, the drug testing, the TWIC card, the first aid that I'm going to get into, having a nice clean email where you can open up without filtering through 10 pages of spam is extremely important. So I encourage you guys to get a nice, or maybe start a new email, right, through Yahoo or Gmail or something, or use an email account that you know that doesn't have a lot of spam, then you can do the updates, because that is critical with all these things that you're going to do. So that's another suggestion I have for you guys. So that's a drug test. Got it in 2 weeks. Sent me an email saying that it was done. They had snail mailed me a copy of this page, right, scanned, and it was kind of blotchy because it's been scanned and printed, seemed like a couple times. I called the guy, said it's not here. He one-dayed it. I paid $20 to have it one-day here because I was over at that point. And then 2 days later, I get it in the mail. Okay, so anyways, I think they have the option of one-daying it to start, and I said I'm going to go cheap. We'll do snail mail. In hindsight, go ahead and do the 1 day so you make sure you have it and it's trackable. So that's another suggestion I have for you too. So when you do the drug test, go ahead and ask it for a 1 day. Okay, so the next thing on the list is a medical certificate. So basically, this is a pretty intense physical, if you will. Okay, this is what it is. It's 10 pages, guys. The thing's huge. Okay. So it talks, you have to go through here, fill it out the best that you can. And if you have questions about it, like I said, feel free to call the Maritime Center or call Mariner's Learning System. It's just basic stuff, stuff you go to see a doctor with the new patient stuff, do you have kidney problems, blah, 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 are you dizzy, stuff like that. What I wanted to point out here, though, is two different things in here that your normal MD may not be able to do, okay? And that is a hearing test. So, like I said, this is March of 2024, and on the medical application that I had to fill out for my captain's license, it made you do a hearing test. This is the sheet that has the hearing. The hearing is on the bottom, and the eye test is on the top. So most GPs are not going to be able to test your eyes the way they wanted, and they're not going to test your hearing. So I'm going to talk about the hearing real fast. I got an appointment specifically with a hearing doctor. Cool little story. I went in, got in the booth, put the headphones on, doing the beeping, pressing the button. And by the way, I passed. And the hearing doctor's filling out my stuff. He says, "What's this for?" And I said, "It's for the Coast Guard, or Coast Guard licensing. I might." He didn't quite understand what I was talking about. I go, "I might do charters on Lake Michigan possibly," which I'm not a charter yet. I'm thinking about it, maybe guiding, whatever. And he goes, "Hey, hold on." And so then the other hearing doctor, because there was 2 hearing doctors that owned the facility, and he stuck his head in and says, hey, who are you going to charter for?" I said, "I'm just getting this captain's license. I don't know if I'm going to charter yet." And he goes, "Hey, I recognize you from the videos." Blew my mind. So he found me on Facebook. We're Facebook friends. Great dude. So anyways, finished this up. They got me done, and walked out of there with just a hearing section completed. So, okay, so the eye portion of this is pretty intense. It's not just going in. Okay, so I have a CDL, okay? And when you go to do a CDL, basically you stand back and you read the chart, and then you look and see if you can understand what green and red is, okay? That's pretty well it for the CDL test. This, actually, they test you on all of your, if you're colorblind on certain colors, they test you for all that. So there's a particular book. So first I went by Target. So over by Target here, there's an eyeglass store. So I called, got an appointment, okay, with an optometrist, and went in and said, you know, I have this eye test I need to get done for the Coast Guard. And they're like, "Okay, let's take a peek at it." And they're like, "Yeah, we don't do that here." Roger that. So that was a waste. So went back, Googled it again, found an ophthalmologist, okay, OPH, ophthalmologist, rather than an optometrist. So I got an appointment with an ophthalmologist here in Northwest Indiana. Went in, had this paper as well. So what I did is I made a copy of this and let the hearing doctor fill this out, and then I had a nice clean paper here in case they would mess up on accident and then ruin the whole sheet. So I did have 2 copies. So I took the eye doctor copy in, so they tested me for my eyesight. Obviously I read the chart. They pulled out one of those books, if you guys have ever had these, a colorblind book. Read through 12, 10, because it's always in numbers and different shades of different colors. Passed that. And then they put me in this little room with this little screen where I had to put my head up against it, okay? And they'd have all these little flashing lights all over, and I would have to push the button or say yes or whatever it was at the time I did this. And that was testing your peripheral vision. So not only do they test you for color blindness, they also test you for your peripheral vision, okay? And I don't know what the threshold is for you to pass or to fail, but I'm just saying that's another thing that we had to do. So then we went back in the one office, and the lady's filling this out. She says, "Let's go ahead and check you for prescriptions." Obviously I'm 47 years old. I'm starting to use reading glasses, and I finally admitted that someone finally told me that I needed reading glasses, which I knew I did, but it's interesting to have a doctor actually say, "Yeah, you need reading glasses now, you're getting old." So it is what it is. So got those 2 things done, got with my general practitioner. He filled out the rest of this, and got it done, okay? Convictions disclosure statement. So if you guys have ever been arrested, DUIs, whatever, you got to fill that thing out. The other thing on the list is a TWIC card. So the Transportation Workers Identification Credential. So in order to get this captain's license, you have to get this TWIC card. So I'm familiar with getting fingerprinted because I have a CDL, I have a commercial driver's license with a hazardous materials endorsement. So I'm familiar with it. I go over by Hobart and Maryville, I-65 and US 30. There's a place called Identico. I got online, got this all done. They give you a website to go to do this fingerprinting. So you fill it out, you say, I want this particular time, this particular day, and they tell you that they're going to give you priority with having an appointment versus someone that just shows up, because you can just show up and just sit and wait. I got that organized, booked a time, got an appointment, so I'm familiar with getting fingerprinted. And by the way, if you have a CDL with hazmat, if you were pre-checked with TSA, none of that counts. They're all separate things. Okay, so I can literally go in there the day I want to redo my commercial driver's license, get a fingerprint for my commercial driver's license for the hazmat endorsement, get fingerprinted for TSA, and get fingerprinted for a TWIC card the same time. Okay, separate transactions, by the way. You got them doing 3 separate times, so they don't go back and forth. Okay, so it's all separate. So I got my appointment, went over to Identico, got in, signed in. There were 3 or 4 people that are already sitting there. My time comes, guess what? They took everybody else that was already on the list. So getting an appointment didn't matter. You might as well just go over there and get it done rather than even worrying about it, an appointment or a particular day. So I just went actually the other day this week to get a renewal on my CDL with my hazmat endorsement, and there was nobody in there. So I still got an appointment, went in, and there was nobody in there anyways. I got right in, I got it done. So getting the TWIC card back takes about 2 weeks. Okay, so the background check takes a couple days. They send you an email, hey, you were approved, and then you have to sit here and wait 2 weeks before that actual physical TWIC card comes in the mail. Okay, so the next thing on the checklist is adult CPR and basic first aid. So you can only do American Red Cross or American Heart Association combined Heart Saver first aid course or any other U.S. Coast Guard approved CPR first aid courses. So be sure when you go get your CPR and your first aid that it is Coast Guard approved. Okay, so I called one of them and I couldn't get in right away. It was going to be a month. I called another one and talked to the lady that actually puts them on, and she made a special trip and just had me personally. I met her over here at the library in town, and her and I got everything done, went over it, did the CPR stuff, the first aid, and she got me approved that day. So one thing I wanted to point out and show you guys is that they're going to send you, they're going to ask you what kind of a card you want, or so when you get this done, the person administering this is going to send you an email with the card, okay? So the card that they email you, be sure that it has the actual course ID, okay? Because when she asked me about this, she goes, is this for the Coast Guard? I go, with this, I'm not going into the Coast Guard, this is for a Coast Guard captain's license. But she goes, okay, so she emails me, which I was wrong, it was for the Coast Guard. This little thing, this little thing in the email where you print and you cut it out and you can put it back behind in your captain's license. But it did not have the course ID. Okay, so I sent all this stuff down to the Maritime Center, and they kicked back not an approved first aid class. And I'm like, goodness gracious. So I called the Maritime Center. They explained, no, you have to have your little completion sheet that actually has the course name on it. I'm like, good Lord. So I called a lady, and she says, I thought you needed to have this because she remembered having the class with me. And so she emailed me another card that actually has, I'm gonna bend this and show you guys here. So this is what it's gonna say. This is the course ID that the Coast Guard needed to know that this was the course I actually took, and this was the course that they had approved. So there, don't do the mess up that I did, and be sure to check with your CPR first aid teacher and tell them this is for the Coast Guard, and the completion certificate that they give you actually has the course ID on it, because the Coast Guard will ask for that. Okay, so the next thing on the checklist, obviously, is your completion diplomas. So I had 3 different ones. I had my OUPV diploma, I had my assistance towing diploma, and then I had my master's, my master's captain certificate. So make sure that you printed all 3 of those, or 2 or 1, whatever you're doing. Just make sure you have a copy of that, because that's going to go in your packet as well. And then the last thing on the credential checklist is the application fee. Okay, so it costs money to print off these Coast Guard captain's license. So you got to get online, and there's several different maritime centers, testing centers around the country. I sent mine to Memphis because I thought it was the closest one. So I got on there, paid a fee to Memphis, got their address, got the receipt, and then I put my whole entire packet together with that receipt, everything included. And one other thing I want to point out. So when I sent this off to Memphis, the entire packet, they emailed me off the good email that I had, and they said, we need your birth certificate. Now, not one place on this checklist did it ask for a birth certificate. So they needed to prove who I was, my age, this kind of stuff. Okay, basically the age thing, I think, is what the lady said. So that was the first hiccup. When I mailed this down to Memphis, they sent me an email that they received my packet, that they were reviewing it. Instantly the next day, the lady emails me, hey, we need your birth certificate. And so I, that night, went and got my birth certificate, used my turbo scan, scanned it, and I literally emailed it that night to the email address that she asked for. So I waited a couple days, and didn't get an email. And by the way, I want to point out though, when you send this packet down, they immediately send you an email saying that they received it, and they give you a reference number. And that reference number you will use for the entire waiting process. So they will send you a link, this home port link, whatever it is, whatever website this is. You put that in your URL. You click on it, you put the reference number in, your last name, hit search, and it will tell you where you are at in the process of getting approved for your captain's license, guys. It's really cool. That was really cool. So 2 days goes by, and I'm playing with that, and I see nothing happening. So I called down to Memphis and actually asked for the lady that had sent me the email. And I said, hey, did you see I forwarded you my birth certificate to the email you asked for? And she says, no, I didn't get it. Oh, no, I'm sorry, to take this back. She goes, yeah, someone will check that. Okay, a couple days later go by. Nothing's happened. Okay, I checked my reference number, plug it in the home port website. So I called down there again. I said, does anybody ever check it? I don't know. I don't know. And I go, can I send it to you? Yeah. She goes, this is my email. And I go, okay. So as I was there, it was still on my computer. So I forwarded her my birth certificate to her personally. She goes, I have it now. I'm going to print that right now and put it in your packet. So my suggestion to you guys, if you don't see all these needles moving, be sure to keep checking back, okay? Because if you don't respond within 90 days, if you give them a faulty email address, they will, 90 days, you're done, okay? You're going to have to redo this whole thing. So make sure that email is good, and also be diligent about calling the 800 numbers and checking on your status if you're not checking them online, okay? Because you might be just missing something little like a birth certificate. And I didn't even think about that. Didn't even think that they needed it because it wasn't on the checklist. Okay, so let's go back to the timeline, guys. So my packet's in Memphis. That lady, the first person that goes through there at the testing in the Maritime Center is they make sure all your stuff is in there. She did not find the first aid mistake, by the way. That happened later. And I think they start the medical certificate when it gets to that spot. I think that's what they do. I think they check all your medical stuff, make sure that's good, and then they start the application for your medical certificate, okay? Once the testing center receives your stuff and goes through it and gets the medical certificate, make sure that's all good to go. They send off for the medical certificate, and then they send that entire packet to West Virginia, okay? And that's the head cheese, Coast Guard, Maritime Center, the National Maritime Center in West Virginia is where all the applications eventually getting mailed to, okay? So at that center, that's where they double check your first aid. That's where they also run another background check, even though you have a TWIC card, because you put a copy of your TWIC card in there. So they already know you've been through a background check with the TWIC, but they also go through what they call security vetting, another background check. And then they also check your sea time, okay, your actual qualifications. And by the way, if you cheat on your sea time, it says right on top of the sea service that there's a 5-year prison penalty if they ever catch you lying on a sea service form. So try to be as honest as you can. They're not going to double check it, but try to be as honest and the best of your ability. Remember, they're not looking for logbooks per se, but they do want some kind of an accuracy on what you're filling out, because there is a penalty if they find out it's fraudulent. Okay, so moving on from the checklist, let's go over how long everything took, because I'm sure you guys are wondering, okay, from start to finish, how long did it take, what happened, and this kind of stuff. Okay, I printed this off, guys, so I'm going to kind of revert back to here. So once I finished my master's exam around the end of Thanksgiving, the next week I passed. I was able to print off their certificates. So I have all my certificates, all my diplomas. It took me a month to get the TWIC card in, because that took 2 weeks. It took me 2 weeks to get my drug test back. And in that meantime, while I was waiting on all that stuff, I was working on the sea time, filling out all the sea time, double checking, adding up all my time, the hours, etc. And making sure I got my physicals all done in that time. So basically the whole entire month of December was working on this checklist. So I sent it off, I think Christmas Eve, or maybe the day before Christmas Eve, December 22nd or 23rd, and I took it to the post office, got a tracking number, and so December 26th, Memphis received my packet. And like I said, when you give them an email, make sure you give them a great email, and you'll get emails on all these updates. So December 27th, obviously the day after, is when they said they needed a birth certificate. January 22nd. So between December 26th and January 22nd, they worked on my medical certificate. And then they mailed it to Martinsburg, West Virginia, to the head shed there. So at January 22nd is when they started reviewing everything else. And they started screening it that day they received it. January 24th, I received my medical certificate in the mail. And by the way, the letter. So on January the 24th, I received my medical certificate, okay? And I want to show you guys the envelope that it came in, because if you're not paying attention, it looks just like a normal bill or, you know, an envelope, or maybe even junk mail. So this is it. This is what my medical certificate came in, guys, okay? And I will show you what the actual medical certificate looks like. And this is the medical certificate, guys. This is it, okay? This little tiny piece of paper here. And that's all that came in this envelope, like that. So if you guys aren't paying attention, you might miss it, or it might get stuck in some newspaper. So be sure, a week or two after sending it in, that you're looking for this envelope, and that's the kind of envelope you're looking for. So this is kind of like a weatherproof. It's kind of slick, maybe wax coating. So this is waterproof, I'm assuming. As soon as they issued my medical certificate, they started security vetting, and that's the background check, okay, that I was mentioning before. Now keep in mind that they already have my TWIC card. You know that I have a hazmat CDL, the government does, but they still need to do another background check. So from January 24th to January 26th, on 26th, I got the email that it passed security vetting, okay? So then it goes through several days here. Must just be sitting in limbo. February the 7th, they started evaluating professional qualifications. And then I'm assuming that's checking the seat time and having an actual officer looking at it and making sure that they're checking all my qualifications for the master's license. February 8th is the email I got about the wrong first aid, that I did not have the right first aid thing, and I talked about that earlier. And I got that fixed. I called the lady that day and got that fixed that day. She emailed me February 7th, the time I got that email. That day, by the end of the day, I had the right certificate. And I emailed them, okay, with the email that they asked. So then I just sat there. Did they, wondering, did they give my email? Did they not give my email? So it was stuck on the status for 11 days. 11 days. Now, that's not business days. I'm assuming it's just 11 days general. I made myself a note here. So February 23rd, I get an email, approved to print. Thank goodness. Okay, thank goodness that was it. It's approved to print. February 28th, they finally mailed it. Okay, so, and then March the 9th is when I actually physically got it in the mail. Okay, so between February 28th to the 9th of March is how long it took the mail to get it to me. Okay, guys, so this is what the Coast Guard captain's license, what the envelope looks like. Okay, this is like a passport book, and I'll show you guys here in a minute or two on what the inside of this looks like. But this is the envelope that it came in. Okay, something U.S. Coast Guard National Maritime Center, official business. It's got the compass on here. So this is what the actual thing comes in, guys. Okay, so I'm sure you guys are curious as to what it looks like actually in this booklet. So I've made some copies, and that way I could kind of mark out some of the numbers on here because I don't know how incriminating this information could be. So I'm going to bring you up to the workbench, and I'll show you what the inside of this thing looks like, this cool thing. So like I said, as of this recording, it's March 2024. After these passport books, starting, I believe, March 1st, they went to a one-page folding waterproof piece of paper. Okay, this is probably one of the last issued passport book style merchant mariner credentials that they actually make, because I think they're going to a new style right now. So, but this is what mine looks like when you open it up. So as soon as you flip it open, that's what it looks like. If found, please return. And then it goes to the second page, and it's got your picture, the information, the reference number. That's when you flip it open. This is the page after, and this is where it shows all your cool stuff. Okay, so obviously a master's. It says master of self-propelled vessels, not including sail or auxiliary sail, of less than 25 gross tons upon your coastal. Okay, and it does have assistance towing on there because I took the assistance towing exam. Ordinary seaman, wiper, steward's department. Okay, and this guy must be some important gentleman at the Coast Guard. And then there's these visa pages in here, guys. I didn't print them all off, but where on your normal passport they would stamp when you enter into a new country or something. And then this is what the very back of it looks like. Okay. So, and then there's a little pouch. This is the pouch. Your TWIC card goes in here. Your first aid, your little first aid thing that you cut out and fold up can go in here. And also your medical certificate slide in here. So that's where you put those three things. Example on where everything goes back here. I'm extremely proud that I did everything myself. I've got friends that use the third party, and there's nothing wrong with using a third party to help you organize all this information. Okay, I kind of wanted to challenge myself to it. That's why I did everything online myself. You can also take captain's courses around the country, guys. There's gentlemen and teachers that put them on 2 or 3 times a year. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with doing a third party to organize all your information, making sure everything's accurate. I wanted the challenge of it. I wanted to say that I did it myself. It was a sense of accomplishment for me to do this entire process myself. I don't know. I have buddies that tell me I do a lot of extra work for myself all the time that I probably don't need to do. But anyways, man, I'm weird like that. I like to challenge myself, and so I'm extremely proud that I did it all 100% by myself. I did have a couple buddies that I would consult with. I called Ernesto a couple times, had a couple questions. He helped me answer that the Maritime Center could also help you with, but I like to get his opinion on it. I called my buddy Brent on how he went through it. He went through a course. He actually sat through a course with a gentleman, and he used a third party. So I got his take on the advantages of using that. And then Ernesto, I believe, did everything himself as well. And so I got the best of both worlds to hear both sides of the stories. But if you guys have any questions about any of this, I will point a lot of this information to the Mariners Learning Systems website, because a lot of that, even if you're not involved in the coursework yet, you can still get on there and research it. And you can also look at YouTube. You can also go to YouTube. There's a gentleman that does a lot of Coast Guard teaching and that also has a lot of tutorials on there. He answers some questions. But keep in mind that everything changes. Okay, this is the government. So as of this recording of March of 2024, even if you're reading or watching some of this gentleman I'm talking about that does some of these YouTube things on what to study for and this kind of thing, it's already outdated. So keep in mind that you're always looking at the most updated checklist, the most updated applications, the most updated physical forms, drug forms, etc. to this time. Okay, where the time that you're physically going to be going through the captain's courses and whatnot. So I want to conclude this with, I'm glad I got it. I'm pumped. I don't know if I'm going to charter or not. This is kind of like a personal growth thing for me. I might get into guiding. I might get into chartering. I have really no interest in getting a bigger boat. This thing has been good to me. I know the days I can get out on the big lake. I know days that I can't. I don't push this thing too hard. I know what its limitations are. And I just don't want to get a bigger boat and start this whole thing. But I might get into guiding. I can take 1 or 2 people out possibly. I haven't done any of that yet. So that is on the to-do list, at least to look into in the future. But right now I'm not doing that. But if you guys have any extra questions, comments, if this helped you, if you like this video, please hit the like button. There's a little thumbs up down there. Click your thumbs up. Put a comment in the comment section. And hopefully if you guys are doing this yourself, that a lot of my mistakes will help you in the end on getting this thing done correctly the first time, and hopefully speed this whole process up. So October 12th of 2023, all the way to March 9th of 2024. So that's from start to finish, the OUPV, the assistance towing, and the master's test. And all the paperwork, and taking my time. I didn't speed through it. You could probably shrink this up by a month and a half. You can start working on all these things as you're doing your captain's license course at work as well, guys, which probably will speed it up a couple months. But if you were to do one thing at a time, this is how long it took me. And depending on what year you're doing this or what month you're doing this, may make a change on the time frame. But I'm sure you guys have all had questions about how long does it take, this kind of thing, and so now you know. So November, December, January, February, March. So basically it was an entire 5-month process for me, guys. So anyways, thanks for coming along. Thanks for checking out this video. And we'll see you on the next one.